Hello. Hey there, I'm Jack. For the past 15 years, I believed I had it all figured out. Lisa and I lived in a cozy two-story house on Maple Avenue, in a quaint little town tucked between rolling hills and winding rivers. Our town was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and secrets were nearly impossible to keep. I worked as a regional manager for a logistics company, often hitting the road for days at a time. Lisa, once a dedicated teacher, chose to become a housewife after we got married, pouring her heart into making our home warm and inviting. Our house mirrored her hard work, always spotless and cozy, with a garden she cherished and maintained with care. Life was straightforward and predictable, filled with the comfort and routines that come from years of shared experiences. We had decided early on not to have children, which allowed us the freedom to travel and enjoy life at our own pace. Our friends often envied our relationship, admiring the apparent harmony and understanding between us. But harmony can be misleading. Sometimes the silence between the notes conceals the deepest secrets. I was about to discover that my seemingly perfect life was built on lies. The changes in Lisa started subtly, as they often do. She had always been meticulous, but now she seemed overly concerned with her appearance. I would return from a trip to find her perfectly made up, even if she had nowhere to go. Her wardrobe gradually shifted from comfortable and casual to more elegant and daring outfits. She also became more secretive with her phone. Before, Lisa would leave it anywhere, but now she always had it with her. She received messages and stepped away to read them, her face lighting up with a smile that wasn't meant for me. I tried to push those thoughts aside, telling myself I was paranoid, but the doubts wouldn't leave me alone. Our conversations became tense. Where we used to talk about everything, there was now a distance between us. She answered my questions vaguely and seemed distracted when we were together. The intimacy we once shared dwindled to almost nothing, replaced by an unsettling silence. One night, while unpacking after another work trip, I noticed something strange. Lisa had been out all day, and when she returned, she seemed nervous, almost excited. Her excuses about where she had been didn't add up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I began to observe more closely, looking for signs that my instincts were correct. Soon I found them. There were inexplicable charges on our credit card, dinners at expensive restaurants, and gifts I certainly hadn't received. She started going out more often, always with some new friends or old acquaintances I had never heard of before. One night, she said she was going to a book club meeting. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but something about her behavior made me suspicious. After she left, I decided to drive by the address she had given me. As I approached, I saw her getting into a car with a man I didn't know. They drove off together, laughing and talking like old friends. My heart stopped. I could no longer deny it. Something was very wrong. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was hiding something from me. The seed of suspicion had been planted, and there was no turning back. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to watch Lisa's behavior more closely and follow her movements when possible. It was exhausting, but the need to know the truth drove me. One day when she wasn't home, I decided to check her phone, which she had left charging on the kitchen counter. My hands trembled as I unlocked it using the code I had memorized over the years. I felt a flash of guilt, but it was drowned out by my overwhelming desire to know. I went to her messaging app, and there, among innocent conversations, was an exchange of messages with someone named Tom. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through the messages, each more revealing than the last. "I can't wait to see you tonight," one of them read. "Last night was amazing," said another. My mind tried to piece together the nature of their relationship. There were explicit photos, declarations of love, and detailed plans for their next meetings. My stomach churned as I realized the depth of her betrayal. That night, I was ready to confront Lisa, but I needed undeniable proof. I discreetly installed a small camera in our bedroom, hiding it among the items on the shelf. It felt like a desperate move, but I had to know the truth with my own eyes. A few days later, I had to leave for another work trip. I told Lisa I wouldn't be home that night, hoping to give her the opportunity she seemed to be waiting for. As I drove away, a sickening feeling settled in my stomach. I parked a few blocks away and quietly returned, sneaking in through the back door. I hid in a small room next to the bedroom, barely daring to breathe. Time dragged on, each minute stretching into an eternity. Finally, I heard the front door open, followed by soft footsteps and hushed voices. Lisa and Tom entered the bedroom, completely unaware of my presence. Through a small crack in the door, I watched in horror as they kissed passionately. Clothes were quickly discarded, and they fell into our bed. My bed. The bed where Lisa and I had shared so many intimate moments. Seeing them together in my house was unbearable. My anger and sense of betrayal boiled over, and I burst into the room shouting, "What the hell is going on here?" Lisa and Tom jumped, scrambling to cover themselves, shock and fear plastered on their faces. "Jack, I can explain," Lisa stammered, but her words meant nothing to me. "Explain? Explain what?" I shouted. "That you've been cheating on me in our own house with him?" I pointed at Tom, who was frantically gathering his clothes. "Jack, please, it's not what it seems," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Save it, Lisa," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "I saw the messages. I saw everything. How long has this been going on?" She lowered her head, unable to look me in the eye. "A few months," she admitted softly. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never wanted things to go this far." Tom, now fully dressed, tried to slip past me toward the door. "You're not going anywhere," I growled, grabbing him by the collar. "You're going to explain everything too." "Hey man, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was married," he lied, his eyes darting nervously. "Don't lie to me," I roared, shoving him back. "Get out of my house, now!" Tom fled, leaving Lisa and me alone in the room. She stood there, clutching the sheet, crying. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "It's too late for apologies, Lisa. You've destroyed everything we had." The weight of her betrayal crashed over me, and I knew things could never be the same. My world had shattered, and there was no turning back. After Tom fled the house, leaving behind a trail of guilt and shame, I turned all my attention to Lisa. She stood there, trembling, clutching the sheet as if it could protect her from the storm she had unleashed. "How could you, Lisa?" I asked, my voice raw with emotion. "How could you betray me like this in our own home?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Jack, I didn't want this to happen. It just happened. I felt so lonely. You were always away and Tom was there." "Lonely?" I spat, my anger flaring. "You think that justifies cheating on me in our bed? With him?" She flinched at my words but continued, my fury demanding answers. "How long, Lisa? How long have you been lying to me?" She took a deep breath. "It started about 6 months ago." We reconnected at a school reunion. At first, we just talked, caught up. But then it became something more. "Something more?" I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. "You mean you started sleeping with him?" "Jack, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you. I love you, I really do. But I felt so alone and Tom made me feel wanted." My heart ached at her words, but the betrayal was too deep, too fresh. "Love? You call this love?" I gestured towards the bed, the scene of her infidelity. "This isn't love, Lisa. This is betrayal. This is deceit." She cried harder, sinking to the floor. "I know, Jack. I know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to end like this." "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my voice weak. "Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you come to me if you felt lonely?" "I tried, Jack. I tried to talk to you, but you were always away, always busy with work. And when you were home, you were distant. I felt invisible." I shook my head, unable to comprehend her logic. "So, you thought another man would fix everything? You thought that was the answer?" "No," she whispered. "I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. I was weak and made a horrible mistake." We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her actions hanging in the air. Finally, I spoke, my voice softer but no less pained. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. You've broken something in me, something I don't know how to fix." She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "Please, Jack, give me a chance to make it right. I love you. I want to make it right." I stood up, feeling exhausted. "I need time to think. I need space to process all of this. I can't be around you right now." She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I understand. I'll stay at my sister's for a while. Please, Jack, don't give up on us." I watched as she packed a few things and left, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed through the house. Alone in the silence, I sank onto the bed, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The days after Lisa's departure were a blur. The house felt emptier, each room a painful reminder of what I had lost. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on anything but the betrayal and anger that simmered beneath the surface. As the rage grew, I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed to make Lisa feel at least a part of the pain she had caused me. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Jack, I didn't want this to happen. It just happened. I felt so lonely. You were always away and Tom was there." "Lonely?" I spat, my anger flaring. "You think that justifies cheating on me in our bed? With him?" She flinched at my words but continued, my fury demanding answers. "How long, Lisa? How long have you been lying to me?" She took a deep breath. "It started about 6 months ago. We reconnected at a school reunion. At first we just talked, caught up, but then it became something more." "Something more?" I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. "You mean you started sleeping with him?" "Jack, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you. I love you. I really do. But I felt so alone, and Tom made me feel wanted." My heart ached at her words, but the betrayal was too deep, too fresh. "Love? You call this love?" I gestured towards the bed, the scene of her infidelity. "This isn't love, Lisa. This is betrayal. This is deceit." She cried harder, sinking to the floor. "I know, Jack. I know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to end like this." "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my voice weak. "Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you come to me if you felt lonely?" "I tried, Jack. I tried to talk to you, but you were always away, always busy with work. And when you were home, you were distant. I felt invisible." I shook my head, unable to comprehend her logic. "So you thought another man would fix everything? You thought that was the answer?" "No," she whispered. "I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. I was weak and made a horrible mistake." We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her actions hanging in the air. Finally I spoke, my voice softer but no less pained. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. You've broken something in me, something I don't know how to fix." She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "Please, Jack, give me a chance to make it right. I love you. I want to make it right." I stood up, feeling exhausted. "I need time to think. I need space to process all of this. I can't be around you right now." She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I understand. I'll stay at my sister's for a while. Please, Jack, don't give up on us." I watched as she packed a few things and left, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed through the house. Alone in the silence, I sank onto the bed, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The days after Lisa's departure were a blur. The house felt emptier, each room a painful reminder of what I had lost. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on anything but the betrayal and anger that simmered beneath the surface. As the rage grew, I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed to make Lisa feel at least a part of the pain she had caused me. When I got home, I saw a message from Lisa on my phone. She had discovered the social media posts and was begging me to take them down. "Please, Jack," she wrote. "This is destroying me. I'm begging you." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "You destroyed our marriage first. Now you have to deal with the consequences." I blocked her number and threw the phone onto the couch. The anger and pain still burned inside me, but now I felt in control. Lisa had shattered my world, but I wouldn't go down without a fight. I would rebuild my life piece by piece and make sure she never forgot the price of her betrayal. The weeks following my revenge were a whirlwind of emotions. Lisa's social media accounts were flooded with comments, both from those who were outraged by her behavior and those who were outraged by my actions. Despite the satisfaction I felt in exposing her, there was still an emptiness inside me. I knew I had to face her again, have one last conversation to bring closure to this painful chapter of my life. Lisa was staying with her sister, and I called her to arrange a meeting. She reluctantly agreed, sensing that it was something we both needed. We decided to meet in a neutral place, a quiet park where we used to walk together during happier times. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, sitting on a bench by the pond. She looked tired, her face pale and drawn. The vibrant woman I had fallen in love with now seemed a shadow of her former self. I approached and sat down beside her, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. "Jack," she began in a low voice, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know how sorry I am." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The pain and anger were still too fresh. After a moment, I took a deep breath and forced myself to look at her. "Why, Lisa?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Why did you do this?" She sighed, tears filling her eyes. "I wish I had a simple answer, Jack. I felt lonely and abandoned. Tom made me feel wanted and alive, but it was a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I'm so sorry." "Apologies aren't enough," I replied, my anger flaring again. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everything we built together. You lied to me, to our friends. You destroyed our life." Lisa wiped her tears, nodding. I know what I did, and I hate myself for it. But Jack, you have to understand that it wasn't just about your absences because of work. It was about us. We were drifting apart even before Tom came into my life." I clenched my fists, trying to keep calm. "So this is my fault now? Because I worked hard to support us?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain. We both stopped trying. We let the distance grow between us, and I didn't know how to bridge it." "Bridge the distance?" I said bitterly. "You could have talked to me, Lisa. We could have gone to therapy. But you chose to sleep with someone else." She flinched at my harsh words but didn't argue. "You're right. I should have done things differently. I was weak and gave in to temptation. And now I'm paying the price." I looked away, watching the ducks swimming in the pond. "So what do we do now?" I asked quietly. "Where do we go from here?" "I want to try to fix this, Jack," she said, her voice pleading. "I want to go to therapy, do whatever it takes to fix it. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." I laughed bitterly. "It's a little late for that, don't you think? You've already lost me, Lisa. The trust is broken, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired." She reached out to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, Jack," she whispered. "Give us a chance." I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. "I can't, Lisa. I can't keep living with this pain. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I want a divorce." She gasped, her face twisting in pain. "No, Jack, please, don't do this. We can fix it. I know we can." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's no going back. I need to move on. We both do." She cried openly, her sobs echoing in the quiet of the park. "I love you, Jack. I always will." I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. "Goodbye, Lisa," I said softly before walking away, leaving behind the fragments of our once perfect life. As I walked to my car, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The meeting had been brutal, but necessary. I knew it was the first step towards healing, towards building a new life without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. The path ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Deciding to divorce Lisa was painful, but it was the only way I saw to move forward. Filing the papers was relatively simple thanks to the evidence I had gathered and the support of my lawyer. The trial, however, was an entirely different experience. It was an exhausting process, filled with accusations, counter-accusations, and painful memories I would rather forget. On the day of the trial, I put on my best suit, trying to appear calm and composed on the outside. Inside, I was a storm of emotions. I arrived at the courthouse early, and my lawyer, David, met me there. He was confident and reassuring, which helped calm my nerves a bit. Lisa arrived shortly after, accompanied by her lawyer. She looked gaunt, her face pale, and her eyes swollen from crying. Despite everything, seeing her like that still hurt. But I had to stay strong. I couldn't let my emotions derail me. The trial began with opening statements, each side laying out their case. David presented the evidence of Lisa's infidelity and argued for a fair distribution of assets and custody of our home. Lisa's lawyer tried to paint a picture of a lonely, neglected wife who was driven to infidelity by my constant absences and emotional distance. It was hard to hear my faults laid bare like that, but I knew it was part of their strategy. Lisa took the stand, her testimony filled with tears and regret. She admitted her infidelity but highlighted her feelings of loneliness and isolation. Her lawyer asked her questions gently, painting her as a tragic figure who made a horrible mistake but was sincerely remorseful. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and tried to remain composed. I recounted the events leading up to the discovery of her affair, the evidence I found, and the impact it had on me. David guided me through the questioning, ensuring I focused on the facts and not the emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. During cross-examination, Lisa's lawyer tried to trip me up, questioning my absences and my dedication to the marriage. I remained calm, repeating the truth. I worked hard to support us, and never imagined Lisa would betray me like that. The most painful part of the trial was when our mutual friends were called as witnesses. They testified about the changes they noticed in Lisa, her secrecy, and the messages I showed them. It was heartbreaking to see how deeply our social circle was affected by this betrayal. After days of testimony, evidence, and arguments, the trial finally came to an end. The judge reviewed everything carefully, his expression stern and unreadable. We sat in tense silence, waiting for his verdict. "The court finds that the evidence of infidelity is clear and convincing," he began. "Given the circumstances, I award the marital home to Mr. Jack Turner. Mrs. Lisa Turner will receive a fair portion of the remaining assets, as determined by the financial documents submitted." Lisa broke down in tears as she heard the verdict, and I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was all over. The life we had built together was officially over. As we left the courthouse, Lisa approached me. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never wanted it to end like this." I nodded, too exhausted to respond. "I know, Lisa. But it's over now. We need to move on." David placed a hand on my shoulder as we exited the courthouse. "You did well in there," he said. "It's never easy, but you handled it with dignity." "Thanks, David," I replied, my voice hollow. "I just want to start over." And so I did. Coming home alone at first was strange. Each room held memories of our life together. But I knew I had to make it my own again. I redecorated, painted the walls, and bought new furniture. Slowly, the house transformed from a painful reminder of betrayal to a symbol of my resilience and new beginnings. The trial had been brutal, but it gave me the closure I needed. Lisa and I would never be the same, but I could finally leave the past behind and look to the future. The wounds would heal, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I was ready to rebuild my life, step by step. Rebuilding my life after the trial was a journey filled with ups and downs. The house, once a symbol of betrayal, began to feel like my own refuge. I put all my energy into the renovations, making it a place that reflected my tastes and my future, not the past I was leaving behind. It was therapeutic in a way, seeing the transformation happen before my eyes. I also threw myself into work, finding comfort in familiar routines and challenges. My colleagues, who had supported me throughout the ordeal, noticed the change in me. I became more focused, more determined. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. One night, as I was finishing up paperwork at the office, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend, Mike. He was organizing a get-together for some of our school friends and invited me to join. At first, I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to socialize again, but I eventually decided it was time to reconnect with the world. The night of the get-together, I walked into the bar feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. It had been so long since I went out for something other than work or legal matters, but as soon as I saw familiar faces and heard laughter, I felt a sense of belonging that I had been missing. Mike greeted me with a hug. "Jack, it's been too long, man. How have you been?" "Better," I admitted, smiling. "It's good to see everyone." Throughout the night, I relaxed, chatting with old friends and sharing stories. It felt good to laugh again, to feel like myself. At some point, I found myself talking to Rachel, an old classmate who had recently moved back to town. She was warm and easy to talk to, and for the first time in months, I felt a spark of genuine interest in someone new. We exchanged numbers at the end of the night, and over the next few weeks we started seeing each other regularly. Rachel was understanding, patient, and she got my situation. She never pushed me to talk about Lisa or the divorce, but she listened when I needed to vent. Our relationship grew slowly, built on mutual trust and respect. Eventually, I found myself looking forward to our dates. We would walk, explore new restaurants, and even took a weekend trip to the mountains. Each new experience with Rachel was a step towards healing, a reminder that life could be beautiful and joyful again. My relationship with Lisa had been a constant source of stress and pain, but with Rachel, everything was different. There were no lies, no hidden agendas, just two people enjoying each other's company and building something new. One night, as we sat on my newly renovated porch watching the sunset, Rachel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Jack, do you ever think about the future? About what you want from it?" I looked out at the horizon, reflecting on her question. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I want to move forward, to build a life that brings me joy. I want to leave the past behind and focus on the present. And I want to see where this goes," I added, looking into her eyes. She smiled, squeezing my hand. "I do too. I think we have something special, Jack." Holding her hand, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, I was excited about it. I had learned so much from the pain and betrayal, about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of living authentically. The divorce was a turning point, a painful but necessary step towards a new life. I realized that I was stronger than I had ever thought possible, capable of rebuilding and finding happiness again. In the end, Lisa's betrayal taught me a valuable lesson. True happiness comes from within, and it's possible to find light even in the darkest times. With Rachel by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I knew I was ready to face the future. Life after betrayal wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving, finding joy in the little things, and being open to new possibilities. Looking at Rachel, I knew I had found a partner who valued and respected me, and together we would build a life filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. The journey had been long and difficult, but standing on the other side, I realized that the pain had only made me stronger. I was ready to embrace the future, step by step, with hope and optimism guiding my way. Bye-bye.